historical context and concepts. So please join me in welcoming David Keiman.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, African-American Genealogical Society, and to the LDS host. It's a great opportunity to be here. And Sharon, by the way, when you read my bio out like that, it sounds like I'm unfocused. And then I realized that, actually, no, it makes me a better genealogist, because what we're all about are the connections. And what I'd really like to chat with you about today are making connections with your family, not just the research side that we were just hearing about so wonderfully a minute ago, but what comes next. So my question, my challenge to all of you is, how many of you are ready to share what you've found already? How many of you have put something in print or on a computer and handed it out to the family, made it available, right? How many of you are being good ancestors? Think about it. So, we live in an amazing time, and technology is here to help us. At lunch, some of us were chatting about being genealogists before computers, and sitting with hours and hours and hours of microfilm. That's right, I'm watching everybody sit here go like this, right? Okay, and flipping through the books that have never been indexed before, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all kinds of tools available to us right now. And Sharon asked if I would focus on one set of tools that actually help us both with the research side and with the sharing side. And if you have an interest in this, I'm going to do our commercial right up at the front end here and tell you that the Computers and Genealogy Group meets here in New York for the last 27 years, every month except for July and August. First Tuesday of the month, we meet at the offices of the New York Genealogical and Biographical Society now. They're very generous to put out snacks as well as seats. And we don't charge a thing, and we can help you get started, or if you're an IT expert, we can help you move into the genealogy side, or if you're an expert genealogist, we can help you move into the computer side and other toys. So the toy that I'm here to talk about today is scanning, the technology. Scanning, digital imaging, and how we can use that, and what some of the basic guidelines are to bring both images into our research and then reinterpret them and share them back with the family. How many people have been on Ancestry.com? So they've done a lot of scanning for us, haven't they? All those census records, naturalization records, immigration records, military records, etc. But I can't necessarily put a census record in front of the family straight up. They're not going to understand it. They don't know what the columns are. They don't know what the columns mean. And as we were just hearing from the professor a minute ago, you must know something about the history of the area that you're interpreting, where your family lived. Okay, putting those family stories in context. So capturing imagery helps the family both from the text standpoint and a visual standpoint to get that context. Okay? So let's take a look at a little bit of technology. Here's my favorite new scanning tool. Okay? That's a smartphone with a flash camera on it. Gotta make sure I get the camera pointing that way, not the camera pointing this way. And I can't tell you how many court records in the last year and a half I've gone in and actually just pulled this out of my pocket and imaged directly. Now normally I don't use this if I'm going to be presenting the images back to the family. It's for reference purposes. Sometimes you can catch something pretty well, but you're going to want to watch lighting, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You're going to want to watch the environment in which you're capturing your images, and then think about how you want to hand them back. So let me walk you through a little bit about scanning and digital photography, and we'll talk a little more about then how to share it. This is our friend, Mr. Muse. You have to imagine the soundtrack here. You all know it goes like Mission Impossible. Okay. So, an image, a little bit of motion. Did I scan anything here? No, I used a pre-written animation, okay? But it catches people's attention, moves them to the next place. So, let's actually talk about, is your family being scanned? As you walk down the street, as you drive, your family is being scanned. Are you taking the documents in your collection and adding to that information? I hope everybody's saying yes. What I do want to share with you up front, again I'll touch more at the back end, is be careful of what you then share out, and that you're not breaking confidences and not sharing images that people don't want you to share. Having said that, I'm going to say scan as much as you possibly can. So, we have books, we have text, we have maps, we have vital statistic records, clearly photographs, old postcards. Anything else people like to scan? Newspapers.
Official documents.
Official documents, vital records, yes. What else?
Maps. Maps.
Maps, okay. Photos, we've got those up. What else? How about objects? Haven't represented any here, but you can put objects that are not flat on a scanner, and you can certainly shoot them with a camera. So, Professor, when you were doing your interviews with the family you hadn't seen that much, you were sitting in their home, I'm assuming you hadn't been in their home much. Did they have any objects that interpreted the family history? Lots of photographs, okay. Cooking pots, things that Grandma used to serve you a particularly favorite dish in. Quilts, great. What else? Furniture. How about anything personal, not just jewelry, but perhaps hairbrushes or other personal items that might have been monogrammed or have family names on them, or that a family member can tell you a story about. Okay, so don't lose the objects when you're thinking about digitizing things. This is a group of different types of scanners. We have in the upper top corner, let's see, on your right, we have what we call an orbital or overhead book scanner. Right down below that, that's actually an iPad with a travel scanner. Talk about new technologies. Next to that, we have a straight-in fast feed sheet scanner. Not great for rare or fragile historical documents. Be careful with those. A plain flatbed scanner. How many of you actually have one or used one? Okay, so it's the most common thing out there for capturing images at this point, other than your digital cameras. And I'll focus a little more on it, but it's going to be the most versatile. But clearly we can't really travel with it quite so easily unless you get down to the lower right-hand corner. We get into some of the new miniature travel scanners in wands, You actually move the scanner over the piece of paper. And then the big book scanner, the ATIS scanner that I happen to love, which is not actually a scanner. That actually uses digital photography. There's two cameras pointing down, set of lights inside that shielded area, and the books are in a V-shaped cradle. So you're getting 2 images at a time. That's not usually a home item. They run about $13,000, but you can find them out there. Renting time is not the way I'd recommend doing it, but if you've got books that you want done, find a service that has a scanner like that or the orbital book scanner, and you can capture things like family Bibles, hymnals, if somebody did a family genealogy early on. Much easier to do that than to try and prop a book up and shoot it yourself, or roll it over the edge of a regular flatbed scanner and get the curve of the page, etc. Okay, what I'm trying to say to you is there are technologies out there now to fit the book or to fit the object. Clearly something like the ATIS machine or a standalone camera is great for shooting three-dimensional objects as well. Okay? So best setup when working from overhead, clear lighting, your book or your object on a flat level surface, camera set up directly overhead with a proper lens for shooting it. Why is this any different from a flatbed scanner? Anybody? Advantages, disadvantages?
Well, the flatbed scanner would tear the pages and destroy the book.
Flatbed scanner can crack the spine, yes, but let's just say I'm shooting an individual piece of paper. Flatbed scanner works just fine, doesn't it? Okay, but here I can control the lighting, I can control the color, I can influence the color if I want to do something artistic with the image. And in point of fact, the digital camera, using a good camera, is going to give me a better archival image than a flatbed scanner will. On the other hand, for 90% of us, capturing that collection of photographs or capturing individual pages of plain text, a flatbed scanner is under $100, fairly inexpensive. The technology is good and sound. People ask me all the time, what brand should I buy? Well, the 3 top brands are Hewlett-Packard, Epson, Brother, and there are lots of other brands that are just as good. I don't want to specifically endorse anything, but any of these can be connected to your PC or Macintosh, and you can do the work at home, but you're going to be limited to individual sheets, okay, and having to disassemble sheets, etc. If you decide you want to go deeper, you want to do more archival quality work, think about the digital camera setup. And you'll have to excuse me here because I'm condensing what's normally a 4-hour workshop here into half an hour. All right, and that's not a complaint, just that's why I'm moving so fast. Getting to know scanning. I need to know a little bit about the computer file formats that I'm going to be capturing using either my scanner or my camera. If I'm doing plain black and white and I really don't care about color, then a BMP, a bitmap graphic, is going to be the smallest, simplest thing. And in this day and age, I'm going to suggest, again, for 95% of us, skip it. Don't go there. Start with a true color image on a true color scanner and start with the highest resolution. In other words, start from the bottom of the list with the best kind of file format that you can, the file format that maintains the most information. And capture your object or your page in full color, in true size. Don't let the scanner software enlarge it or shrink it. You'll do that afterwards for analysis or presentation. Capture it at true size. If it's 8.5 by 11, shoot it at 8.5 by 11. Capture it in full color, even if you feel it's just a black and white document. Once you've captured it in color, you can put it into any of the paint programs, and I'll talk about several of them, any of the image manipulation programs, and you'll save a second set, perhaps in grayscale or black and white. But for archival purposes and capturing family documents, true color, full size. Okay? Photos and text, for presentation purposes, and sometimes just, again, shooting off of a camera like this, I'm going to be shooting JPEG, the JPG format. And that's quite often what scanners are set up to do by default. Also a PNG format, which is a slightly newer format. The only issue that I have with those formats, because again, they're great for presenting images, and all the images I'm showing you here are JPEGs, is that the files are compressed, so I lose some data. And each time I save them, I lose a little bit more data. So you want to be very careful if you're thinking about scanning for archival purposes, to shoot at a high resolution in the preferred format right at the moment is TIFF, T-I-F-F, or TIF. It's going to be also, though, the largest file format. You can get some very big files. Okay, imagine taking a wall map that's 24 by 36 inches, not a huge map. Shooting it in multiple sections and then stitching them together in full color in the TIFF format, it's going to be a very big file. You're going to need the memory to do it, you're going to need the hard drive space to do it, but it's the best way to preserve it, and then you can work with compressed JPEGs for actual presentation purposes. Okay? And the scanners that are out there and the cameras that are out there today will allow you to shoot in all these formats. The last one I mentioned here for archival purposes is what we call camera raw. If you're really at the high end and you're really looking for archival work, raw means it's the data exactly as the camera captured it. It's a fairly large file, and it's the equivalent of having a digital negative. So for archival purposes, it's great to shoot something as a raw file, but you have to be working with a camera then. Most scanners won't do that. You capture it as a raw file, and you save those raw files, and again, convert a set immediately to TIFF or JPEG, whatever you're going to be working in. And that gives you the best archival preservation long term, because it means, again, exactly the light that came through the lens and hit the sensor is what's captured. Any of these other formats, the inventors of those formats have taken a best guess at what your colors should look like, or how your pixels should be represented. Are they round, are they oval, are they rectangular? That's getting, again, at the high end of technical decisions, but you should know that TIFF, JPEG, PNG, all will modify your files a little bit without your necessarily having control of them, unless you've done it from a raw file. Next thing, and the thing I think I get asked most, when I'm scanning, how many dots per inch should I scan at? Anybody know what dots per inch is a measurement of? Pixels, no.
Dots per square inch.
Dots per square inch. Well, How many of you have ever measured a square inch on your computer screen? So it's not dots per square inch on the computer screen, it's dots per square inch on a piece of paper. It goes back to the days when we actually had printers that printed little dots that you could identify every little dot on the page. And the more dense the dots, the darker the image was in that area. So if you had a picture that overall was at 300 dots per inch at the maximum, that was better than something that was 75 dots per inch. Okay? But we're used to this name. We're used to this nomenclature, the DPI. So we stick with it. And here's a quick guideline for you. 75 DPI is the best quality that a computer screen, a commercial computer screen on a laptop, on a desktop, can display. You can't get better than that for display purposes. On the other hand, if I'm printing a high-image art book, I'm going to want something in 1200 to 4800 dots per inch, because then I really am putting ink on a piece of paper. So imagine the difference between 75 DPI and 2800, 2400. Okay? So working with the computer, 75 dots per inch is the best you can display. Second number is 300 dots per inch, which is a good average number for 99% of us printing and sharing text and images with family. And it doesn't create overly large files. And then higher than that if you're looking for archival preservation. Shoot the highest resolution in full color at full size. Okay? The one thing to keep in mind is if you're presenting back on the computer, if you have an image that's at 150 dots per inch instead of the 75, it means you can blow it up 2 times, twice the size, without its breaking up, without people being able to see the squares and dots that make up the pixels. So I don't want to confuse dots and pixels, but every time you double the number of DPI, you can enlarge for screen presentation. All right, this is as technical as I'm going to get today. Promise. All right. Before we get to questions, I actually want to show you some choices here. This is a JPEG, created from something that was shot camera raw, converted to a TIFF file for archival preservation. This happens to be a Masonic Freemasons minute book from June, July of 1780. And as a project we shot last year. What I'm looking at now is a JPEG. In other words, we stripped down from the larger format to this format. We also then cut the object off the background it had been photographed against and put the neutral gray background behind it. So presentation, once you've done your scanning, is a big part of what you want to be thinking about. You don't have to be an artist. The key here is to look for contrast. Okay, how readable is that? Not very.
Wow.
And I'm not yet at 200%. Okay? Because I shot at a very high resolution, but for presentation purposes was able to compress and then add it back in. Okay? So a scholar can actually sit down with this and literally, if they want to, look at the keystrokes or look at the scratched out marks on the paper. Okay? And you have to make a decision when you're doing your scanning for your own objects and your own documents, exactly how fine you want things. I'm going to show you a bunch of things at the high end and let you know that there is nothing wrong with not going all the way to that high end. In fact, it's way easier just to do a straight up, full size, full color, TIFF scan, and then work with your image at 300 dots per inch. Let's look at another one. This is actually in Photoshop, which is an Adobe product. Hello, I can get it up here to stay. Hello. Let's close it. No. Hello. All right. Try a different image. Sorry, don't know what's going on with the computer here. All right, let me show you something else in the meantime, and then I'll come back to that. Take a look at these three pictures. This is my great-grandfather from Hungary. Here's the image. And we'll go in with a different program to take a quick look at him as a young man. That's about 1902 in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And that image, you'll notice, if I look at Adolf JPEG, is only 243 kilobytes. Very, very small file. Okay, but you all can see it fairly clearly right here. On the other hand, the TIFF file from which that was created is 5 megabytes. Okay, so the TIFF file being archival, the other one for presentation, and would also do just fine for print. Okay, all right, I was hoping that I could show you how to do some editing here. So let's try it again. How many people have ever used Photoshop or Photoshop Elements? Microsoft Paint? Okay, and there's a freebie if you want to get into playing around with your photographs. There's a great freebie on the web called GIMP, G-I-M-P. It's open source, means that it's free, it's maintained by a community that's interested in image manipulation, and all the little things that I can show you here with a high-end software package like Adobe Photoshop are available in GIMP as a web application. Okay. So, first sample. This is a page from an American naval hero. How many of you have ever heard of John Paul Jones? Okay, we had the honor of imaging his logbook that's over here at New York Historical Society for a project. The Navy went hunting the ship, the Bonhomme Richard, that sank in September of 1779 when he was in battle with the Serapis. And this is the logbook that he took from the Serapis when the Bonhomme Richard sank. He moved all his sailors over to the Serapis and took the captain's logbook turned it upside down and turned it into his own logbook. So that's what this particular historical document is. This was shot by hand without any tripod, without any camera stands, with a basic Canon digital camera, an 18 megapixel camera, using natural light. We were not allowed to use photographic lights because it's an older document. I couldn't even bring it over by the window to get the natural daylight. And this is the kind of thing I wanted you to see when I said sometimes digital photography has an advantage over straight up scanning, because I couldn't do this with a scanner. This is in a bound book. Each of these pages was shot by hand, and then we did some tweaking to the images. And if you look over on your right-hand side, you'll see that there are layers that make up this image. Each of the items in this list is a layer. So if I turn the different layers on and off, watch how the picture changes. Okay? So the background, again, contrast makes a big difference. Maybe changing the lighting on the image. In this case, we also sharpened the image a little bit. That's a little more subtle. I don't know if you can see it on the computer screen. These are simple changes made to the document for presentation purposes. When you're thinking of scanning images, storing your pictures, make sure you share them back out, but think about how you might want to tweak them for a presentation. Right? Do I have to show the whole image? Is there something very specific that I want in the image to highlight? Do I change color? Do I change shading? Certainly, again, looking for a neutral background with contrast. Take all these things into account. And then we're going to go back to that picture of my grandfather that I was just talking about. And this has already been saved as a PSD, which is not a file format. I mentioned it's a special format for working with Photoshop. It's roughly equivalent to a TIFF. And here's the basic picture as it was shot. And after adding a background, and putting the picture back on top of the background, just the fact that I got rid of the little white areas where the picture had been cut, I still leave it so that you can see, you get a sense that it's an older photograph from those cut areas. But by adding that little bit of gray background, it makes it easier to focus on the main subject. Now that we don't have time today, but normally what I would then do here is go in and adjust things like light levels. How dark are my blacks? How white are my whites? How bright are my whites? Can I adjust the contrast between the two? If it's a color picture, do I need more red? Do I need more blue? And I can do all of that using image management software. So scanning and working with images, I want to say to you, is easy. It's straight up. Keep the guidelines of true size, true color, 300 dots per inch for most print purposes, 75 dots per inch for presentation on the computer, and then have the courage to find some image manipulation software, something that you like, and play and enhance those images and build them into your family presentations. Whether it's a book, whether it's a computer show, whether it's a slideshow. One of the things I did, my beautiful wife is sitting over in the corner. We were at her eldest son's wedding. I shot, for the first 2 hours of the wedding, I shot a series of photographs of the bride, the groom, all of the guests, etc. And in the last 2 hours of the wedding, I took the computer, all of those images converted immediately to JPEG using a computer projector like this. And while the dancing was going on, we were running images of the wedding from 2-3 hours ago on the ceiling over the dancers. Everybody had a great time because they all recognized themselves. It's a wonderful way to share with the family, and we then have those photographs separately from the official photographer set of the event, right? Put photographs on a bunch of large pieces of paper, a lot of white space around them. Hang them up at birthday parties, at anniversary celebrations, on trees. Hang a pencil or a pen with a string next to that piece of paper and ask people to write the stories of the pictures. Okay, so share these things. Many of your family members have never seen the pictures in your collection, just like you haven't seen the pictures in theirs. If you share yours, you'll find more coming back to you. Scan them, put them out there, put them out on the web. Again, careful putting things on the web. I'm going to open up to questions.
In scanning archival work, how important is it to log the information if you accumulate substantial amount of scanning?
Whether you accumulate a small amount or a large amount, you want to source any of your research. This is a legacy family tree, which is my personal favorite genealogical software package. And let me go in here one sec. Strong. Moses Michael Hayes, born in New York in 1739 to a watchmaker from Amsterdam. And that Masonic page that I showed you earlier has to do with him. He was a very major figure in early American Freemasonry. And in fact, the first civil rights case argued in front of a state or federal legislature 7 days after the Declaration of Independence was his fault. He raised it. Tell you that story separately in another time, but just to pique your interest. Notice that with his record here in my genealogy software package, I've clipped in that Masonic record. Okay, it could have been a picture of him. Yes, I do have one. But just to show you that you can connect pictures in with almost any of the major genealogy software systems that are out there. And here is that same image clipped in, okay? And I've done very minimal sourcing on the caption on this one. Normally in my full research file, I would know exactly what book this came from, what page in the book it came from, and where the book resides, and how to retrieve it. So the next researcher, again, I'm a good ancestor, the next researcher can go and repeat my process, okay? So I don't care if it's one image or hundreds of images out of your dresser drawer. You want to caption them, tell people who's in the picture, and where did, to the best of your knowledge, where did the picture come from? Okay?
As a novelist, who doesn't know EPI from JPEG.
Come to the computers and genealogy.
You know, I mean, how do you start? You know, I have
Okay, great question. As a novice, how do I start? I have two suggestions for you. Number one is never be afraid of your computer. Okay? They are dumber than we are. They only do exactly what we say. The problem is we have to learn how to talk to them. Okay? So if you connect your computer to a scanner, you purchase an inexpensive scanner, and you do what we call RTFM. Read the manual. Okay. They all come with instructions. You know, they're way easier than babies. Babies don't come with instructions. Right? So read the instructions, or better yet, get online and go to something like lynda.com, where they have all kinds of videos, and for about $29 for a month subscription, you can get all kinds of how to get started videos to watch, or read the manual, or show up at any of the genealogical societies or at the Computers and Genealogy group where we're focused on technology, and ask the question. And I don't have the time here to walk you through the exact process, but people will be there to help. Genealogy is, we're used to sharing with our family members, so we share with each other. So show up at the genealogy groups and ask. The other suggestion is, I'm just technically challenged, there's no way it's gonna happen. Okay, so there are services out there that'll do it for you. And for example, at 75th Street, or between 74 and 75 on the east side of Amsterdam Avenue, there's a photo shop. And for under $100, they'll take up to 1,000 of your photographs, your personal snapshots, etc., and they'll scan them and put them on a DVD for you. And then you can sit copying them off the DVD if you want, and putting them into a program where you can track who's in this picture, where did it come from. I got it from Aunt May, it was hanging on her wall, whatever, and track that information. You don't have to do it yourself. You can hire the services, okay? Yeah, east side of Amsterdam.
Pro image.
So, Pro Image, 74th and Amsterdam. But that's just one sample. You have a larger collection, you have larger images that you need to do something major with. Get in touch with a company like Royal Imaging down in Midtown Manhattan. You have an archival collection where you want to bring the cameras to your archival collection. Call Heritage Muse, that's one of the things we do.
I just want, I'm sorry. David, could you say something about the scanning software and how you make those choices?
Yeah, then when you launch, you connect the scanner, it comes with software that you'll install on your laptop, on your desktop, whatever you've connected it to. And it will guide you through and ask you, do you want to do 300 dots per inch? Do you want to do 150 dots per inch? Do you want to do 600 dots per inch? Do you want to do color? Do you want to do black and white? You'll have all those choices within the software. Kate's absolutely right.
I just wanted to ask a question. I've been trying to track down a relative, a great-grandmother was born in Ireland. And I looked at passenger lists. I know it was around 1889, I think it was before Ellis Island. And I looked at passenger lists and everything just was diagonal lines like that. Do you know if they've done anything to kind of pull it out so that you could read it? No.
No, it sounds like there's a problem with that specific image. If you know that it was on the family search site or on the ancestry site, wherever you looked at that image.
I was at Garrick Street and it was, passenger list.
So you were actually in the microfilms?
Yes.
Then you're what we call SOL. Sorry out of luck.
Thank you.
Because once it was photographed like that, we can't correct it.
No. What time is your meetings on
Okay,
Tuesdays?
so again, we meet first Tuesday of the month at the offices of New York Genealogical and Biographical Society, 36 West 44th Street on the 7th floor. We meet from 6 to 8 p.m. The first half hour is open Q&A, and we help each other. Some people were talking about brick walls and firewalls. We've got experienced amateurs, we've got many professionals. How many of you have been to one of our meetings? I know there's several of you in the group, right? So, come and ask the questions in the first half hour. We try to help each other, and then we usually have a presentation that runs till roughly 8 o'clock. And if you have the stamina after a whole workday, several of us usually go out and Dutch treat, have dinner locally, and get to continue the conversation and the questions. So it's a nice time and a nice group of folks, and we'd encourage you to come. Yes, sir.
Are there any apps? Are there any apps for scanning that you might know of?
For
On the
mobile,
smartphone? For the smartphone?
yeah, well, scanning per se, no. Because you're not going to necessarily connect a scanner to this. If you have an iPad, I haven't seen this on the Android yet, if you have an iPad, there are travel scanners that can connect just like you connect a keyboard. So you mount the iPad directly into the scanner, and the scanner software app appears directly on the iPad. If anybody knows of one for Android tablets, I'd love to know about it.
I just bought a Bookstone portable mouse scanner. I haven't used it, but I'm going to be traveling and I bought it, opposed to the wand scanner.
Right.
The mouse scanner is portable, you connect it to your PC and you scan and you can edit.
Right. The miniaturization of scanners is something that's been going on for a while, but this last year has seen things like mouse scanner, wand scanners, and what's very popular in the genealogy community right now for under $150 is something called the Flip Pal, which you need to take 4 images of any 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, but then it automatically knits those images back together as a single image. And several of the genealogy software vendors are shopping them. We have some questions over here.
Yes, I'd like to know if your class on the first Tuesday of every month, do you ever deal with any of the old, say, camcorder or that have been changed into DVDs and how to edit that?
Yeah, we don't get into the very specifics of editing, but questions often come up about converting older media types, things recorded, for example, on a VCR or a camcorder. And people in the group have done it different ways. Some people try it themselves, some people, have hired organizations to do it, and it really depends on the quality of what you're starting with and what purpose you want to end up for. Most of us are not trying to convert home movies to broadcast quality video. So there are a lot of different routes, and if you show up and ask the question in the group, I guarantee 3 people will hold 6 opinions, and you can make up your mind to go with.
The lawn scanners, and what do you recommend, or do you want to recommend a particular vendor?
I don't want to recommend a particular vendor, but I will say my experience with the wand scanners really has more to do with how steady is your hand, okay? And how clear is the originating document. If I were to take something like this and slowly run the wand down it, it will be beautiful. It will look great. In fact, because these are photocopied, it might even look a little better than this, all right? On the other hand, it's something that's been handwritten and is on paper that you can see the print on the other side, or paper that has, where you can actually see the chain and lay of the paper fibers, things like that. With a hand scanner at a high resolution, it would become almost unreadable. So,
With the mouse, okay, as between the scanner, the hand scanner, and the mouse scanner, what do you feel is better technology?
what are you more comfortable with? See, as soon as we get into miniaturization, for example, laptops, versus tablets, versus which laptop, do I get an Ultrabook, do I get a notebook, etc. The keyboard and the screen are the two most personal things you interact with. You don't care about the computer unit. You don't care about how big it is other than how many pounds you're lugging around. Put your hands on the device and see what you are most comfortable with. And that's going to be what you're going to be happiest with. Unless you've been told in advance that it doesn't have a technical feature you particularly require.
Another form of scanning, Nikon has a scanner for individuals who have negatives, who want to transfer negatives into digital on your computer.
Right.
For example, the Nikon 9000 scanner will scan negatives, slides, 2 1/4, 16 millimeters
And
into your digital.
35 millimeters.
And, right, and major 35 millimeters, so that you can digitalize and then edit, so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
He just said it's Greek to me.
Oikos tuo Dimitri. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with the, pardon me. So try it one more time.
There's an app called JotKnot, which is a scanner that you can put on your iPhone.
On an iPhone?
Yeah.
Right. Again, what I'm asking about is, does anybody know about anything for the Android? I just haven't seen it yet. iPhone and iPad, there are some apps. There are, again, I was talking about GIMP. GIMP is available not only for your laptop, but you can use it on your tablets, both Android and iPads. Yes, that's for image manipulation, like Photoshop. Anything else? Okay, so our next meeting, the topic for our next meeting is on software to help you write. Online dictionaries, multi-language word processing, multi-language dictionaries in different alphabets, indexing software, thesauruses, things to help you creatively think about how to organize and write up the oral history that you may have done recently. Software to help you with transcribing. So our next meeting is all about software to help with writing and sharing your genealogy. That'll be the first Tuesday in April. And we haven't announced our main topic yet. And June is always our Ask the Experts panel. So if you really have brick walls you want to break through, we have, again, some experienced amateurs, some full-time professionals who show up and come and get your brick walls at least knocked on. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me. And if anybody would like to be on our mailing list, you can see my wife over in the corner there. Just give us your name, legibly your name and your email, and we will be more than happy to send you out. We promise no advertising.
Okay, this is our next 15-minute break. We'll see you back here at 3:40.
Thanks, Professor Harris. That was a powerful presentation. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll be out. You said broke? No, I bought one at auction. auction you're putting up. So General course here, 15 minutes break in this huge conference, 9th annual Afro-American Genealogical conference here in Harlem, happening where Professor Harris in attendance. We also have Keiman, he's archaeologist, actually a genealogist, and Carla will be here talking to us this evening. There's around
2. Good afternoon, Professor Harris. If you don't mind, briefly, you've done a lot of work. We are a political project based in New York City, and it does appear it involves a lot of finance. How do you generate your funding for this huge?
How do I say it again?
How do you generate funding?
How do I get funding? Oh, well,
I mean, traveling, researching. I mean, it's a lot of capital.
Emory has research. I had research funds from Emory,
Okay.
and that helped. But I have family in New Orleans, so I could stay with them when I was researching. So it wasn't. Yeah.
So, what do you advise individuals who would want to get involved in?
There's so much you can do online now that you don't
traveling.
have to
Oh,
travel.
okay.
But at a certain point,
You have to travel.
you do have
to be on the ground.
to go there,
Yeah.
especially in the more rural areas where stuff hasn't been digitized.
Okay.
To go to those local archives, try to find the local histories that people have
Absolutely.
written that don't necessarily travel outside of the community. That does become important. So, yeah, but it's possible. But it does
It's
take
possible.
some
There are
time.
possibilities, yeah. But it comes with challenges as well.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
That's because you're using like a copy flatbed type of thing.
Correct.
And then you're going, after you scan it, it becomes digital.
Correct.
I'm talking negative scan versus
So you need a special piece of
two different kinds. Scanning flatbeds is like a copy machine. The negative scanner is using negative to go digital.
I got you.
I have a lot of negatives, and I have a lot of slides.
How is it organized?
But they're not organized.
That's
the problem.
first thing you do. It took me a year to develop a system to log and track the archive. I have 25,000 frames, 890 rolls of film that I'm going to attempt the rest of my life to print. One subject matter is jazz, another one is La Maquette in Harlem, demonstrations and protests, my favorite things. So I had to be able to organize a system. So if I say, oh, where's a picture of Duke Ellington? It's in pack number 422 and it's negative number 16. Have to have a system. My system, I think, from what I've heard and dealt with other photographers, I'm a chairman of a group of photographers, my system is the most effective, time-saving, and efficient. You must be able to organize, you must be able to organize it. Once you have organized it, now you can say, okay, I've got 65 frames, I've got 65 rows, now I want to scan it. The time it's going to take you, let's say 100 frames, to scan it, digitalize it, edit and adjust, and print. We're talking time. So what's the archive? Why do you have the archive?
Computer and technology part seems to be pretty much taxing. Just get a computer and capabilities that you are comfortable with and go from there. Don't use computer you're not comfortable with. When you like the button and like the features, go with what you are comfortable with, and then you go from there. Then you're able to enjoy tracing your family tree or history with a huge archive. Listen, a few minutes break. We shall be back.
I know what's in pack so-and-so. I know what